17-year-old is stabbed at a Scarborough high school, sending the building into lockdown.
His condition at this time still remains life-threatening.
I hugged my dad right when I got out.
Police evacuated students one class at a time as parents waited for them outside. The victim, a grade 12 student at the school, will have the latest. Plus,
I'm strongly recommending that all Ontarians, not just those at high risk, wear a mask in indoor public settings.
that coming from Ontario's top doctor today as the triple threat of COVID-19, the flu, and RSV continue to overwhelm hospitals across the province. Plus,
newer model SUVs continue to dominate the list in Ontario, specifically to the GTA.
is your car on the list of most commonly stolen vehicles? We'll tell you which ones made the list and how you can better protect yours. Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. A 17-year-old boy is in life-threatening condition tonight after being stabbed at a Scarborough high school. The incident sending the building into a lockdown this afternoon, just shortly before students were to be dismissed. Dale Manukduk has the latest.
Just after 3 o'clock, Toronto police responded to reports of a stabbing at Birchmount Park Collegiate Institute in the Birchmount and Danforth area.
Upon their arrival, they located a 17-year-old victim in the office of the school, suffering from an apparent stab wound. They immediately commenced life-saving measures for an extended period of time and were relieved by Toronto Ambulance Services.
The Toronto District School Board confirms the 17-year-old victim is a grade 12 student at the school. He remains in life-threatening condition. Police would not release any suspect information and said they believe there was no further danger to the public. Immediately following the violent attack, the school was put in lockdown. The lockdown started to lift around 4:30. Police assisted with the safe dismissal of students, going to each classroom one at a time, instructing parents to pick up their children at the East End parking lot. Here, we spoke with a student who was one of the first to be let out.
I was in the washroom, and then when I came out, I just saw the guy who got stabbed with blood all over his stomach. So I got scared, so I ran back to class. I hugged my dad right when I got out.
This is the second stabbing incident at Birchmount Collegiate this year. The first was in April outside of school hours.
I think one is too many, and schools deserve to be a safe place to learn and work. This isn't the answer to a problem that a student may or may not have.
The violence has many parents worried.
Just want to figure out what we're going to do. We are failing. It's not them. Don't point your fingers at these specific kids. It's us, all of us. You, and me. All of us. We're failing our kids.
The board says that social workers were on site today and will continue to be to assist staff and students. We do know that there is a school council meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Several of the parents I spoke with intend to raise the issue of student safety and mental health. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Scarborough.
Ontario's top doctor is strongly recommending wearing masks in public again. This as hospitals in Ontario are being overwhelmed by a surge of sick children due to a wave of respiratory viruses. Numerous pediatric hospitals, including sick kids, have been operating above capacity for days now, prompting some infectious disease experts to call for a return to mandatory masking. But as Chris Glover reports, Dr. Kieran Moore today stopping short of ordering a mask mandate.
Samantha Anger's 4-year-old son was born with a condition to his urethra. He's been waiting on a second surgery to fix it since 2020.
Right now, unfortunately, he urinates out of 3 openings. So obviously not ideal. That complicates things like toilet training.
Back in May, Sick Kids told her due to the pandemic strain, the hospital was sorting through a backlog of 500 patients with his condition. Now so overwhelmed with a surge of patients with respiratory infections, Sick Kids is putting many surgical procedures on hold, prioritizing instead urgent and time-sensitive cases.
We feel absolutely helpless over this, frustrated.
Children's hospitals across the province are dealing with overcapacity ICUs, mostly from RSV and influenza, plus a rush of new patients. Need the pediatric ER at McMaster Children's Hospital, and you can expect to wait 10 to 12 hours.
Unfortunately, we're facing extremely long wait times in the pediatric ER, and as you alluded to, we're facing a surge of viral infections.
We're currently experiencing extraordinary pressure in our pediatric system.
Today, Ontario stopping short of instituting a mask mandate.
I'm strongly recommending that all Ontarians, not just those at high risk, wear a mask in indoor public settings.
Ontario's top doctor even urging symptomatic people to wear masks with family in private homes, especially if children under 5 are there.
We need us to mask around those most vulnerable in social settings, which mandates haven't worked for in the past, at family gatherings, at family social situations.
But with many experts calling for a mask mandate for Ontario, is today's recommendation enough?
I don't think it is.
Dr. Isaac Bogosh says no.
If you're not going to mandate masks, there are multiple steps to take to improve mask adherence in the community in the absence of this mandate. And that would mean sound communication, a lot more than a press conference.
Each and everyone has to take responsibility and protect themselves and protect others.
Transit rider Pushpa Kumar says, mandate or not, she's recently put hers back on.
Last week I was sick with the flu, so I mean, just masks in general is probably a very good idea.
And while some tell us they're planning to return to mask wearing, others say not unless it's forced.
It's really up to everyone's mind to see if they really want to wear it or not, because no one's going to follow the rules anymore.
Dr. Moore was also asked today if he's considering reintroducing any other COVID-era precautions, things like capacity limits or lockdowns, and to that he said no. He thinks the furthest step he would have to take is a mask mandate, but he says at this point the biggest driver of infection seems to be happening at home, and since mask mandates don't cover private homes, he is hoping that education and this recommendation will be enough. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
There is some good news tonight for parents searching for children's pain and fever medication. After months of shortages, the federal government says it has secured a foreign supply of children's acetaminophen. It says the medication will be available in pharmacies in the coming weeks. Health Canada is urging people to buy only what they need. The Ontario government revealing its fall economic statement this afternoon, projecting increased financial uncertainty and lowering growth projections. It announced it will be providing more support for low-income seniors and ODSP recipients while expanding a tax break for small businesses. But opposition parties are pointing out there isn't anything new to fix healthcare. Lorena Redekop has the details.
We are facing a difficult road ahead. And an economic slowdown in the near term is very real.
The term economic uncertainty appears 20 times in the new fall economic statement. It forecasts real GDP growth and jobs to slow from the spring budget's projection, plus a $12.9 billion deficit. That's improved from a larger projection.
We're taking a responsible and targeted approach, making record investments in the priorities that matter.
The government is doubling support payments for low-income seniors for 1 year, starting in January. It's also increasing the earnings exemption for people on disability supports, allowing them to earn up to $1,000 a month before money is clawed back, up from $200, though that only affects around 25,000 people. ODSP rates will go up by 5%, with the rate indexed to inflation as of next summer. Asked why the government isn't doing more?
With respect, we have raised the rates. We've taken action to index it we've taken action to increase the rates by 5%. We've indexed it to inflation.
Plus, more small businesses will be eligible for a tax break. A few weeks ago, the province's financial watchdog predicted years of surpluses and billions in contingency funds.
Where is the transparency? Where is the trust on the dollars?
The opposition points out there's no extra healthcare spending at a time when hospitals are overrun, pediatric ICU beds are full, and in the last update, the province had a $2 billion surplus.
Instead of taking the opportunity to invest in our hospitals, they sit on billions. Amid a healthcare crisis, which is real, this government has not allocated a single new penny.
There is a significant amount of healthcare spending that I put in the budget. So we got to work early.
As for what happened to that last surplus, the government says it all went towards paying down the debt. The finance minister was asked how he's preparing for a possible recession, and he pointed to projects such as building roads, transit, and hospitals, long-term projects designed to increase productivity and create jobs. The opposition parties wanted to see more help directly to help low-income families. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario has repealed its controversial Bill 28, which imposed a contract on education workers and banned them from striking. Now, last week, Premier Ford offered to withdraw the legislation if CUPE members returned to work, which they did. CUPE reacting this afternoon.
Respect is what will get a deal at the table. And this government has not shown that respect, not just to us, but for workers everywhere. Bill 124 is still on the table. We are seeing a province that is really crushed under healthcare crisis. It's time to stop with the performative actions, and it's time to respect the people. Repeal Bill 124. You've repealed this one. It didn't hurt that bad. Let's repeal Bill 124.
The province passed the law earlier this month, but 55,000 CUPE workers walked off the job anyway, shutting hundreds of schools for 2 days. Both sides are back at the bargaining table, but it's not clear when a deal will come. All right, Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at your forecast. And Colette, it's getting colder over the weekend. I saw these pictures of snow. I had friends in London just kept posting their snowfall. I'm like, it looks like we skipped fall, we're into winter.
I know, we jumped from all those mild temperatures last week and that we had in early November, and then, yeah, snow squalls, lake effects setting up, and then daytime highs that look like this. In fact, just barely above freezing there. And now we've got another system we got to set our sights to, which is here coming out of the Midwest. I'm going to kind of roll this forward. The storm track does bring it our way, but I'm going to stop it there because I do want to first point out, as we see the winds changing direction, we'll get some lake effect tomorrow and likely looking at some wet snow there close to the lakeshore, especially the west end, but all along the north shore of Lake Ontario, that's possible, with kind of a mix into southwestern Ontario. Then the main system kind of gets here and it's going to merge with another one coming from the west. And when that all moves in, we're going to see some big changes Tuesday night into Wednesday, but you have to stick around. We'll get back to that when I come back and give you more detail on it and those accumulations, but a look at the chilly temperatures for you tonight.
Thanks so much, Colette. Car thefts and carjackings in the GTA are up. And tonight, we're getting a look at the most commonly stolen vehicles in our province. Alicia Chiasson has more on what made the list and how you can better protect yourself and your car.
Is your car on the most wanted list? A Lexus RX, Honda CR-V, Ford F-150, or any of these? If so, don't get too excited. It's not good. This is a list of cars most likely to be stolen in Ontario.
These vehicles are being stolen and they're not being recovered.
Anti-insurance fraud organization Equité says they're most often being stolen and shipped overseas and being re-VINed, which is when a car thief copies a legit vehicle identification number and sticks it onto the stolen car.
VINing is simply the process of putting a new VIN on it, or a cloned VIN from potentially a vehicle that was legitimately exported out of the country.
But the stolen cars can also come back into circulation here.
Or take advantage of the supply chain issue across the world, and then they're selling these, stealing vehicles, re-VINing the vehicles, and then selling it to unsuspecting consumers in Ontario and across the country.
Car theft is an ongoing issue in Toronto, whether it's high-tech fob copying that happens right outside your door or violent carjackings in the middle of an intersection. Carjackings are up over 200% this year over last. Car theft is up 45%. Zainal Ari's Range Rover was stolen from a bank parking lot.
I took the keys with me and I went inside the TD bank. It took me like 7-8 minutes to do my banking, and when I came back, my car was not there.
Range Rovers are number 6 on the list of most stolen cars in Ontario.
I feel not secure anymore. We are not safe anymore in that city.
We will continue to do everything we can.
And that includes dedicating a branch of the Organized Crime Squad to take down the car theft ring.
We have a real problem, and it's a problem that's organized. So that's where we have to come in.
While the police continue to arrest car thieves one after another, you can protect your car by having a steering wheel lock, parking it in a garage or a well-lit area, and keep a tracker in it.
The more layers that you have, the more time that it's going to take them to defeat whatever this system is. they'll hopefully move on to the next vehicle.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News.
Welcome back. The Toronto Argonauts are getting ready to play for the Grey Cup. The team won the East Final at BMO Field yesterday and are now set to face off against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers next weekend. Greg Ross caught up with members of the Argos before they travel to Regina tomorrow.
The Argos decided not to practice today, instead packing their bags for the trip to Regina. The extra rest may do them some good because they won't get much heading into Sunday's big game.
Grey Cup week is always nonstop, you know, from the media to practice times to being in a new environment to being in a new city to all the people that surround it, right? It's kind of a nonstop experience from beginning to end.
This time, the Argos wrote a different story.
But it is important for the Argos to find a way to focus as they get set to face a very formidable opponent in the two-time defending Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
We're playing the best team in the league, and they've won 2 Grey Cups. They're looking for a three-peat, so we know we got a great opponent. We got to be our best.
The Argos are riding a wave of emotion after yesterday's win over Montreal in the East Final, a game that drew their biggest crowd of the season. While home field may have been a big advantage for the team yesterday, they don't expect to have the crowd on their side in the Grey Cup.
It'll be a home playoff game for them.
Argos running back Andrew Harris knows the Bombers well. He not only played there for 5 seasons, he was born in Winnipeg, and he says their fans will travel.
I'm assuming it'll be a big bulk of Winnipeg fans in there, but we're up for the challenge.
The Argos will have some fans of their own there to cheer them on.
I'm over the moon. I'm just so excited.
Lori Bursey is the president of the Friends of the Argonauts fan club. She's a diehard from her head right down to her Argos shoes. She's headed to her 33rd straight Grey Cup. She says the Argos may be in tough against the Bombers, but they've faced a lot of adversity this season.
A lot of people don't know that we had the most man days lost to injury in the CFL. So we had to overcome a lot.
The 109th Grey Cup goes next Sunday at Mosaic Stadium in Regina. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
And you are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, mostly clear tonight and partly cloudy overnight. Currently only 2 degrees in the city, but feeling more like 0. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your long-range forecast. And Colette, looking further down the road, it seems like these temperatures are kind of here to stay.
Yeah, and so that Arctic air that's been, well, it was in place at the prairies and kind of spread our way. That's one ingredient that's in place. Now we've got a storm system tracking towards us, and so we're going to be seeing some more light, wet snow, and in most cases light, but there are some exceptions. So I said I would pick it up from where I left off earlier in the show. There you go again. During the day, some wet flurries possible. It'll be pretty localized, but because of the winds off the lake and starting to see some of that activity as well into southwestern Ontario, then I'm going to push this forward, and as we get later on Tuesday into the evening hours, a mix coming into southwestern Ontario. It looks like for Windsor to Leamington, through that area, it's going to be more of a rain event, and maybe with what you see overnight tonight, a centimeter or 2 of snowfall. But elsewhere, when we put all these totals together, it becomes a bit more significant. And for that morning commute, I've mentioned some of the problems tomorrow possible, but even on Wednesday for the morning commute, I would expect it to be a slow one due to some of that wet snow. It'll stick more on the grass than on some of the surfaces because of the temperatures, but still cool enough that we're likely to see some accumulations there. By the afternoon drive, you should be better in the GTA, but still some wet roadways into southwestern Ontario. Now, the latest model runs of the Canadian model have really enhanced some of these numbers. I wouldn't kind of panic on that yet. And again, keeping in mind, this is putting it all together along the lakeshore between what happens kind of overnight tonight, tomorrow night, and into Wednesday. And you see the lesser amounts there back towards Windsor area, and that is because, like I said, more turning into a rain event. Some of the cool numbers tonight, -5 in London's going to feel like -11 when you factor the winds in. Similar for Oshawa and for Markham, -2 for Toronto, 3 the daytime high on Tuesday, Wednesday only 2, and even Thursday we have some more energy that's going to come through. So still some flurries in the forecast then, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette.
And at long last, we celebrate Herb Carnegie, whose story both inspires and infuriates.
He's not a household name, but tonight Herb Carnegie is being posthumously inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Carnegie, who was born in Toronto, is being inducted as a builder for contributions to the game off the ice, not on it. Cameron McIntosh has more on the hockey legend who never got a fair shot.
So this is a replica of what's being hung in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Herb Carnegie fought for decades to make hockey more inclusive. His daughter is elated to finally see him get in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
The feeling that I have about my father going into the Hall of Fame right now is a sense of peace, knowing that his contributions will always be remembered.
In the 40s, Carnegie was a minor pro star with the Quebec Aces, mentoring a young Jean Beliveau. He had dazzling speed, scoring titles, but the NHL's color barrier was very real, made clear in an infamous quip from team owner Conn Smythe, who said he'd pay anyone $10,000 to turn Carnegie white.
He was one of the greatest players who never got a chance to play in the National Hockey League because of his color.
Filmmaker Kwame Damon Mason has dived deep into Carnegie's story.
Herb Carnegie had played in the original six. At that time, when he was at the top of his game, the game of hockey would have looked totally different.
Carnegie later succeeded in business and as an advocate for diversity. His Future Aces youth leadership program has endured for 66 years. He passed away in 2012.
Herb Carnegie, again, made his life work about helping others, not as necessarily as a black man, but as a man. And he sort of wanted to make a safe, inclusive environment for everyone.
And they actually got the sparkle in his eye.
Getting to the hall was no sure thing. It took years of pressure.
My father was one of those people who was clearly a trailblazer. And I think it's so fitting now that his story is going to be recognized.
He never played a shift in the NHL, but Herb Carnegie left a mark on the game worthy of the greats. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.